Hello everyone, Carlos here, and welcome to What's Up in Archaeology, 19th of June. Today I'm going to talk about Neanderthals and diseases. Just a little bit of announcement, I've monetized my channel. Don't contribute, don't have to contribute, it's just to see, I don't care. And hello BJ Price, mate. Trying it out, see how it goes. I need to do more work on my channel, displaying that. So we'll see how the channel evolves. That's a nice word, evolves. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about today is one of a few hypotheses on how Neanderthal may have become extinct. The main ones are that he was outcompeted by us, Homo sapiens. Another one was climate change could have taken care of him. And third one may have been that he was bred out, because we have bred, there's evidence that we have exchanged genes with Neanderthals. Now, and this raises a very interesting question. Is that the only thing we did exchange in our amorous ways with Neanderthals? Apparently not. Hello, Warped Reflection. I'm going to link the article now. I'm going to, share the article. It's from BBC Earth, and my mouse is not working well. That's the one. It's from BBC Earth, and it says here, the surprising way, it's titled The Surprising Way Neanderthals Got Herpes. Well, that's a really catchy headline, if I do say so myself. Really clickbaity. Now, can you guys hear me well? Just before I get started and have a drink. I'm sure you guys can hear me well. I can see the thingy on my screen that it's moving. Anyway, cool. Thank you, BJ. Right. As modern humans traveled into Europe and met Neanderthals, we may have given them diseases that contributed to their downfall. Like I said, that's one of the hypotheses of how they may have become extinct. Well, it's by Melissa Hodgenboon. And starts off, Neanderthals were very much like us. I've already said that many times in many of my streams. Hello, Nibush, mate. They were good hunters, extremely well adapted to the cold, and skilled craftspeople. They shared our ability to make sophisticated stone tools. This article, I like this article from BBC, because it has links that you can click, and you can click and see other articles. The immune system would have got them. Yeah, well, you'll see. One of the articles is the actual study from the oh god, I've linked it down, so it's while it opens, the proceedings in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology. So the link that I have, it's my second link from this article. It surprisingly gets you the full study that's archived in the online library wiley.com, and you can't download it, but you can read it, which is the whole article, which is great, because the original one The actual American Journal of Physical Anthropology only gives you a summary or the abstract, but this one you can see the whole study, links, sources, everything. So they did share. They did have. They were good hunters. They were very intelligent. They were as intelligent as us, and they were as skilled as us, almost as skilled as us modern humans. I mean, that we were so alike, in fact, that when modern humans came face to face with Neanderthal groups in Europe and Asia, the two species interbred, subspecies, yes, two cousins, because they were the two races interbred. And we have evidence of this in all modern humans, or modern Europeans and Asians. Yes, we do. Like I said, I have 3.5% Neanderthal DNA in me. Right, coming through the DNA and comparing it to ours, we have already revealed several disease-carrying genes we carry today that came from Neanderthals via interracial romp, interspecies romp. I'll use this what the article says, the interspecies instead of interracial, because it confuses people, and we'll keep it as simple as possible. Right. But a new study proposes that disease transmission went the other way as well. So we did inherit some diseases from Neanderthals. The actual article, the actual study lists them. Have a look through it, because it's a bit complex, but have a look through it. In the third page, if I'm not mistaken, third or fourth page, it lists all the interspecies transmissions of diseases that came one way and the other. So it's quite good. I don't know half of them, but I don't need to know. I'm not a pathologist now. So, and we were given the several harmful pathogens. This picture here is genital herpes. So just so you know what it looks like. These could the harmful pathogens that these could include was herpes simplex 2 virus, which causes genital herpes. The Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium that causes stomach ulcers, and they may have we may have even given them Neanderthals tuberculosis and tapeworm. We were cunts. We have to admit it. Homo sapiens were fucking cunts. We gave them such an awesome species, bloody gifts that just kept on giving. Now, this Charlotte Holcroft from the University of Cambridge and her colleague Simon Underdown from Oxford Brookes University, both in the UK. Yeah, that's just so people know that it's not Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Oxford, North Carolina, just to distinguish those two. Came to the conclusion that after considering the facts that some of the most common Neanderthal DNA carried by the living people has a role in fighting diseases. So they provided us some aspects that some characteristics that helped us fight certain diseases. These pathogens that were important fact of life in the Stone Age when the two species met. They also looked at the genetic family trees of several pathogens to establish when they first infected modern humans. So they got the yes, archaeology, apparently we did, and some other stuff, tapeworm and tuberculosis and stomach ulcers. And they gave us some other ones that, as well as ways of fighting them. So it was a two-way street. So many of the initially thought that that spread from animals to human at least 8,000 years after the dawn of agriculture, but it is now clear that a number of human diseases were around thousands of years earlier. Yes, they were. The pest may have been quite recent. I don't know. Anyway, I have them here in my other computer, I could list some of them. Let's see, some of the bacteria: Borrelia, cholera, diphtheria. No, the Pleistocene, not the Holocene, the Pleistocene. Brucellosis, the stomach ulcer and the Helicobacter pylori. The leprosy may have been from that period of time. Salmonella, typhoid. Oops, sorry. Parasites such as head and body lice, pinworms. Oh yeah, the head lice. Head lice is very easy to trace. In fact, lice are adapted to certain types of hair. Genital lice you never get on your head, and vice versa. And the different species of genital lice, for example, gorillas have them. Chimpanzees also have their species of both genital and hair lice, and we don't get infected by them because of the way that their legs and are shaped and so on. Oh shit! I thought I should have put some. I'll put some links into the I'll put some links into the description about the different lice and so on. So they weren't free of all diseases. They were free from some diseases that were endemic to us, Archaeonomy. And the study that I have in my second link, he shows all of the parasites, viruses, etc. That these two archaeologists, academics studied. So yeah, hello, Gunny. Let's get back to the article. This would mean that they would have been carried by modern humans traveling out of Africa. That's why they didn't have some of those diseases, Neanderthals, because some of them came from Africa. And when they met, obviously, when they met Neanderthals and Denisovians and possibly the other ones, they transmitted and passed them on. Nice model of a Neanderthal. The link that I have is an archive of this year, American Journal of Physical Anthropology. The diseases would not have killed Neanderthal quickly, says Holcroft. It would have been a slow progression into slightly worse health than they had before. So this is interesting. When I first read this paragraph, it sort of made me think. Hello, Carlos David, mate. Because we know that we have inherited as reinforcements of our defense mechanism from Neanderthals. This could mean that they had mechanisms which helped them fight off diseases that were better than the modern humans. So the descendants of modern humans and Neanderthal crossings would have had quite a good advantage when there was any outbreak of any diseases, major diseases, and that. So so that's quite interesting in that. People today do not usually die from these ancient diseases, of course not, because we have developed immunity over the eons. But all diseases, as you know, also mutate and evolve along with us. So the ancient ones that we find in the DNA of Neanderthals and fossil modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens from the same period, would not affect us in any way. Then ancient diseases, they would only have a small impact in our general health, obviously. However, Neanderthals were facing other challenges when these diseases arrived on their doorstep. So there's genetic evidence. There's a link here if you guys want to click the links. That they already had there were few of them by 50,000 years ago. We don't know why why they were probably going extinct by then. There is evidence, not just genetic evidence, but actual physical evidence from so few sites post 40,000 years ago to about 35,000 years ago, when possibly the last Neanderthal lived in Gibraltar in southern Spain. That the numbers would have were small. So that then if we had some unwelcome pathogens to the mix, would have put additional strains on the hunting and foraging ability of Neanderthal groups, each of which would probably include 15 to 30 individuals. Yeah, that's an average-sized tribe. Bear in mind that it's probably calculated that when Homo sapiens came in contact with Neanderthals, they would not have numbered much more than these. Even given all our advantages that we have over them, that are basically a different strategy, plus some different, let's see, some different contextualized notions. How do I put this way that even I could understand it? We can see detail in abstract. I hope you can see what I mean. We get a map of an area, even if it's just a river. The most simplest map you can draw. You draw a line that represents a river. You draw a road, more or less. You put 2 points that you sort of know, in fact, and say, look, you have to follow this road, avoid this other road that you can just draw. That's 3 squiggly lines, couple of ways of depicting a mountain and a river or a waterway or some other place, and we can interpret that. That's what I mean about abstract conceptualization and so on. It appears that Neanderthals could not think that way until further evidence arises. That's how it's that's an hypothesis. So in fact, that's been already, if I'm not mistaken, that's already been covered. I'll look it up and probably do a future hangout on that. So let's get back to the article. If any one group was wiped out, it would have been devastating for the Neanderthal population as a whole. Yes, and there's even evidence that they had periods of starvation, in fact, from northern Spain, from northern Spain, in the Atapuerca El Cidron site, where they practiced cannibalism in times of extreme pressure like that. So yes. Okay, let's get back to that. The influx of diseases, if it really happened, well, it did, because we're finding them in the genetic makeup of us, and once in fact, we've already mapped the Neanderthal genome, so we have found the markers that these diseases leave behind. It could provide another piece in the enduring puzzle. Why did our cousins went extinct while we thrived? Yes, we will one day answer this. I am quite confident in that. So I don't think we will ever find a single theory. Nope, no, never do single theories. I like to Oh, that's interesting. What? It's a Cuban Sargon. I'm sort of a Sargon now. I got a beard and all. So, um, yeah, and I don't like the notion of one theory to bind us all. It is not just one aspect that led any group to become extinct. Take the megafauna of the Americas, the mastodons, the horse, the giant sloth, for example. Um, a lot of factors could have arisen because they only became extinct after Homo sapiens got into the Americas. It could have been that they brought diseases because they brought the dog with them. So yes, the dogs have carried diseases. They carry fleas, they carry other pathogens, worms, etc. And that's one aspect. Diseases, yes, overhunting for sure, because these animals, if you get them, they would never see, had never seen an animal like us, Homo sapiens, and we could approach them quite closely and just kill them off before they would have reacted too much. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Evil Gunny. Nope, I will never acknowledge them. I'm hiding them. I'm protecting them. No, no, no. I'm not. I'm from the fifth son of Proxima Centauri. So I'm from that area. So yeah, that's where you should look for them. The reptilians don't. Reptilians. No, no, no. I'm not reptilian. I'm warm-blooded, man. Anyway, let's get back. Back to the article. So no, they're not just one single theory that killed off the Neanderthals. There's a whole lot of things. There's I just mentioned at the start. There's three or more. Um, us over out competing them. This one with the diseases and the climate change, because after the last glacial period, it started to warm up and so on. So there's a lot of even could be cultural. We cultural practice that they did that could have led to their extinction, but we can't find that cultural aspect in the archaeological records yet. We don't know at all how they not plagues, just diseases, Malefis, mate. Yeah, well, we don't know what actually killed the Neanderthals for now. Um, See, this is the last part, as I said, the last place where they lived in Gibraltar, the um, the caves. The hypothesis of these two is that basically each band of Neanderthals had its own personal disaster over time. You lose more and more groups. This is just one of the many factors. Okay, she said climate change may have also been a factor, like I mentioned before, led to the dramatic reduction of forested environments Neanderthals were used to. Could be, but they also lived in the tundra areas. So yeah, it could be. These two, the resulting less food for them to hunt and gather. I don't know. They hunted mammoth and they were plain animals. They also hunted giant megaceros, which were giant deer, big horns. They had those big antlers up to 2 meters wide, and the actual megaceros would have been over 2 meters high at the shoulder. And they hunted aurochs. We know that they hunted horse. It's a hypothesis, but we know that they hunted other games that were not forest um, impacted by forest deforestation. So, but yeah, that brings us to this one that says here Neanderthals resulted in less food for them to hunt and gather. Brings us to possibly that the Neanderthals were outcompeted by us. Could be. While Neanderthal genomes does not show traces of modern human diseases, we might soon be able to infer their presence by looking at signs that the gene variants. Now I didn't read this, I skipped this part, but this article is, do you see what I mean? That the articles like that, you have to be very, very carefully. This paragraph here, while Neanderthal genome does not show traces of modern human diseases, we might soon be able to infer their presence by looking for signs that gene variants known to be resistant to the pathogens were widespread in Neanderthal populations. Now, if we go back to the start, these two from Cambridge University and Oxford Brookes University came to the conclusion that after considering all the facts that most common Neanderthal, not that wrong one, sorry, right, that these could, the new study proposes may have been given. So they're basically this. Oh God, I hate that. Sometimes I hate badly written articles. I suggest you guys read the actual study because yes, it's a bit complex, but such lazy writing. I'm sorry, people. Sometimes I get really frustrated when something like this happens. Yes, they have found, they will find, or they have found yeah, I'll read a paragraph from the actual study. We will discuss in evidence for infectious disease with Neanderthals, beginning with the infectious-related skeletal pathologies. Right, so they have found infection pathologies in the archaeological record, and considering the role of infections of hominin evolution, we have synthesized current thing that the chronology of the emergence of notable European disease packages. Finally, we will look at evidence which will integrate the FEET model. The indigenous Eurasian Neanderthal population has been adapting to the environment, including its infectious diseases. Okay, we know that. Disease exchange. Oh, okay. There is no evidence that we passed on herpes to Neanderthals. So there we go. It's still in peer review, by the way. That's the second article, the third link. So yeah. The latest analysis shows that the Neanderthals had extremely low genetic diversity. Let's continue with this article. Forget about that extremely badly written paragraph. We get a record of natural selection by looking at what genes are present and what genes are missing, says Underwood. We are able to reconstruct the challenges faced by our ancestors 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens sapiens, essentially using genetic record to construct their daily life. The second new study, which is currently under preprint server BioRex, it still hasn't been peer reviewed, by the way. Yes, it is, Maleficus. It is, but apparently it's restricted to Homo sapiens, because they haven't found any evidence that we transmitted those diseases to Neanderthals. That disease specifically. We may have, like the beginning of the article said, transmitted other diseases, but we shall see when the peer review paper comes out. It's preprint, so take it as you guys want. I linked it in the description, so if you guys want. So it has not yet undergone peer review, obviously. It might explain why Neanderthals fared worse when exposed to diseases that modern humans had successfully survived for a long time. We first have to find evidence that Neanderthals did suffer from those diseases because they left their marks, genetic marks. And at the moment, we do not have those evidence. So they probably didn't suffer from those diseases. But that's just my speculation. Well, no, my interpretation, actually. This nice picture of a Neanderthal. The latest analysis shows that Neanderthals had extremely low genetic diversity in many genes important for disease resistance. Neanderthals all had pretty much the same variants of each of these genes. That's good. Not really. Or either the genes were so well adapted to fight off a lot of diseases, or they probably led to their downfall. While modern humans, on the other hand, showed more diversity, probably because they were exposed to more pathogens. This means that when faced with foreign diseases, Neanderthals had a weaker defense mechanism. That's speculative statement right there. We don't know, because we haven't found the diseases that modern diseases, foreign diseases that attacked Neanderthals. Hello, Modwayne. Yes, interspecies romps. I can't remember. They were the best kind. It's that, you see, that's what they mean by non-binary. I suspect the interspecies romp, but we are not interspecies. We are one species, unfortunately, for them, not for anyone else. In other words, although we have had a two-way exchange of diseases from when modern humans and Neanderthals met, the modern humans would have been better able to deal with the new infections. They just said, again, here, oh God, while Neanderthal genome does not show traces of modern human diseases, they fed less because there was an exchange. Do you see the idiocy, people? The badly written articles. It makes me not angry, because I'm too old to be angry at the moment, but it makes me sad that the current state of journalism. There was Gamergate. Could this be Archaeology Gate? Or Paleontology Gate, or no, not Paleontology, or Anthropology Gate. That's a catchy tune. Bad ethics in anthropology and archaeology journalism. Again, just so guys knows, I have monetized the channel, so and I got super chat on, but never mind, don't use it. You're not obliged. So this is from Maleficus. So, would part of the reason modern human victory, in the grand scheme of things, be also aided by our closeness to animals such as cows, wolves, and their diseases bouncing? That would have been later on, Maleficus. That would have been after the wolves were first domesticated around 30,000 years ago, and Neanderthals were dead by about 35,000. Well, pure Neanderthals anyway. The latest evidence we have in Gibraltar about 35,000 years ago. Thanks, Archaeology. Uh, what? It's never mind. Say, bruv, no. Domestication of animals, or should to say, the beginnings of taming of animals came much, much later, about 30,000 years for the dog, the wolf, and the rest of the animals in the Neolithic period around after about 10 to 8,000 years ago, BC, more or less, the beginnings of the Neolithic period, yeah. So, no, they did not have domesticated, but they would have been in contact with them anyway, because they did hunt them, and they even killed wolves, the cats, the giant cats, the bears, etc., the cave bear, and of course, and they even lived in the caves where and those animals inhabited, so they would have had contact with some diseases. But Neanderthals were only in contact with Eurasian diseases, so their immune system would have been tuned to those diseases, while the Homo sapiens, us, we came from Africa, and a whole host of other other exotic diseases that Eurasia did not have. Just to finish off, Bobby Lieberman, I will come back to your question just to finish off this here. When population been separated for some time, the diseases evolved separately as well. Yes, we know that. So when the populations came together and potentially exchanged those diseases, they would have some effort affect one or both of the populations. Unfortunately for Neanderthals, it just happened so that they were a better genetic toolkit. No, bad conclusion. I don't accept this conclusion. This is not how things work, so we'll leave it at that. So we can stop sharing. And that's the article. Again, even for BBC, it's quite a slightly sloppy article. I did not really enjoy it. So let's get back to Bobby Lieberman's question. The process of domesticating animals and evolving alongside them would have led to immunity. Yes, exactly. Many diseases being introduced in domestic animals, and their diseases suddenly would be a disaster. Absolutely, yes. One of the reasons early farmer hunter-gatherers, early food producers, which started off basically domesticating animals, herds, the ibex into sheep, etc. Around 6,000 years ago, the auroch would have been domesticated into modern cattle. The horse about the same time. The pig, probably also about the same time. The pigs, the chickens, they were all more or less domesticated between about 8,000 to about 4,000 BC. More or less, and independently in each region, because the far Eastern Asia had their own domestication events, and of course the Americas had their own domestication event. Now the continents of Eurasia and Africa, after it was especially the Western bits, after they were established, trade and it would have spread. So even up to the southern parts of Africa, domestication would have been brought on after the initial flurry. Oh, thank you, Chantel. I hope I'm not too boring, because I stutter a lot, and maybe my Australian accent sort of puts people off. But yeah, but the evidence. That date shows that they were living close to human, with human company, because the actual Neolithic revolution happened after that time. You're forgetting. We at 13,000 to 12,700 BC. That's 14,000 to 15,000 years ago. We were still in the grips of the Ice Age. That was just going down, but there was still it was beginning to of course thaw, to warm up, but it was still not it was still basically hunter gathering. So yes, there was the evidence suggests that pigs were, especially the wild boar and the wild sheep and the wild horses. There is a lot of evidence that they shifted from the hunters, the prey that the hunter gatherers were. There was a climate. There was the climate was changing at that period. It was very, very unstable. We know from deep sea core measurements and other ice measurements from Greenland. We know all we've mapped the climate of those periods, and we know that there was variations, like even worse, more than we're having now. You could have a really hot period, decade-long heat wave, and then a couple of decades of extreme cold within 1,000 years. That period. It was only after about 12,500 BC, 11,000 BC, when the Neolithic, when finally we entered the interstitial period that we are still in. We're still in an ice age, people. We have ice still on our planet. When we leave a total ice age, when there is no ice on Earth at all. So we're in the middle of ice of a glacial maximums. It's called an interstitial. We don't know how long it'll be before it starts going back into the cycle of freezing, because now that the human fact has been influenced, we don't know. So but yes, concrete proof that we have for domestication, the beginnings of domestication, would have been just after the beginnings of the interstitial period, around about 10,000, 11,000 BC, when they sort of, just after they started building Göbekli Tepe, that really old temple that everyone thinks was done by aliens and so on, but it's not. It's just the beginnings of the Neolithic period. So yes, I did a stream a couple of weeks ago on evidence of absolute breeding practice. I mean, selective breeding, and it comes from Siberia. Göbekli Tepe. Yeah, thank you, BJ. That's the one. I can never pronounce that stupid name. Bloody Turkish names. Yeah, thank you, Bobby, as well. Well, yeah, my stuttering is just because my brain freezes, and it isn't anything serious. When I'm, in fact, when I'm drunk, I sort of stop stuttering. So, and I'm not drunk yet. Enough. It's too fucking cold here, people. So, but anyway, oh, thank you. Anyway. Oh, probably, yeah. Sometimes my connection is a bit shitty. Yeah. Where was I? Oh yeah, domestication. I think I will do a stream. I've already sort of covered it one in the hangout I did. Which is more advantageous, hunter gathering or agriculture? And we came to the conclusion. I can't remember who I was on with, but we came to the conclusion that early food production, that's what it should be called, food production. It involves agriculture and domestication, both of those things, until the creation of the state, quote unquote, around the time of the first civilizations, Assyrian, Babylonia, etc. Up until then, hunter-gathering would have still been quite advantageous. It was only after that the city-state was achieved, that redistribution of goods, storage of foodstuffs, etc. You could agriculture could provide, or food production could provide enough for a population that would have been just too big for hunter-gathering. So yes, and that is the reason which I am going to cover. It was posted to me on a question asked to me on one of my videos. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Why it was a bit racist, that question, but why have some groups of people not taken up agriculture? And I'll sort of cover it because I still have 15 minutes to go, so I'll just sort of basically go over the highlight. No, absolutely, I don't have any links for that, but I will provide them in when I really cover this better. Yes, exactly, Bobby. Yes, when they did stop the nomadic lifetime, that would have been stopped. The nomadic lifestyle would have been stopped much earlier than the quote unquote the city state. It was into the chieftain phase of civilization. The early tribes, agricultural tribes, would have first been nomadic, not even planting. They didn't know. Well, they sort of knew that what they cut, the grains they cut down the next year, they would have grown in that area. From that phase to actually deliberately planting wouldn't have taken them much of a mental jump. Then when they had probably had wild animals eating their stock or their food or whatever, said, shit, they probably thought, yep, we have to protect this area. So that would have led to more sedentary, being more sedentary. And then from that to storage, which was the pottery. We get into the pottery. This is pre-pottery Neolithic. Once we get to the Neolithic with storage, the pottery Neolithic. Civilization and food procurement and food guaranteeing would have been slightly better, but then they would have had to become settled in an area just to protect their livelihood, and that is why in that period we have a lot of fortified settlements, at least the beginnings of fortified settlements, due to raids from other tribes and that. Exactly, Archaeology. Yes, they did. And it's interesting that the Torres Strait Islanders had contact with Papua New Guinea and the Australian Aborigines. And I think the Torres Strait Islanders practiced a very well, they did practice a form of agriculture. They did plant food and that. Pottery was not around in the Far East before 6000 BC, 7,000 BC. It was almost independently not discovered, because humans have been firing clay for 30,000 years before. in the Dolní Voltenice in Czech Republic. They had a kiln. They made they fired clay figurines, so they knew about pottery. And in the actual clay pots was in the 6,000 to 7,000 BC time zone, independently in both parts of Eurasia. Technically, it is, but we don't distinguish pottery as figurines. We distinguish pottery as actually pottery, storage bowls, cups, and cooking utensils, that sort of thing. But technically, yeah, sure. Yeah, they did, but in Dolny Volt, never can pronounce these. Dolny, one sec, I'll see how it's spelled. Vestonice, Dolny Vestonice. That place, it's 35,000 years ago. It has a kiln in an embankment near the settlement, and it's a settlement, but it's a temporary settlement because they would have come back periodically during. Well, they would have come back the right season. I don't know what was this. I don't think we know what season they did come. Possibly spring or early summer. Would have been the most richest time to gather resources around the area, and we know that they've made thousands of figurines, animals, people, etc. The Venus, one of the Venus figurines, the quote unquote Venus figurines, comes from that period. Bread. Well, bread is a weird thing. Eggplant apocalypse. Bread. We have evidence that they bake. That even Neanderthals cooked burnt grains. Homo sapiens certainly harvested the grass seeds. Now, I think there is also some. This is out of from my memory. There's also some evidence that there is grinding implements to grind grain. So grinding grain, adding water, cooking that. You have bread, flatbreads. Yes. So thank you, Modwayne. So yes, bread is very ancient, and yes, beer didn't come till I covered that. I think it was with you, Modwayne, wasn't it? That we talked about beer or alcohol in the ancient past. The evidence that we found. So just to cover that, going back to Australian Aborigines and why did they ever take up agriculture, or even the Amazonian tribes? In some Amazonian tribes, because there is evidence of some Amazonian tribes that have gone extinct. There may be evidence of huge, quote unquote, cities in the Amazon that they did practice agriculture, but they would have known agricultural communities. Not yes, it was about 2-3 weeks ago. So they would have known agricultural, in contact with agricultural community. The Incas, for example, just to give an example, the Toltecs, the Nazcas, the Incas, they would have all been in contact with food production. The food production societies would have been in contact with the hunter-gathering societies, and they chose not to. We don't know really why. It could be because they didn't see an advantage. They were having enough. They were extracting enough nutrients from their environment not to warrant them starting a initially very risky enterprise because agriculture, not modern agriculture, but ancient agriculture, was a hit and miss affair. A lot of civilizations have gone bust because of climate change that forced agriculture to not produce enough. The Mayans are an example. So yes, maize farms, maize as in corn, or in maize as in maze runner type thing. You can't tell. Oh, come on, Bobby Limmerman. Let's not be Zionist. Well, I'm sort of a Zionist. So there, I said it. I am. Now that'll lose me about 6,000 subscribers, but I only got 1,000. So yes, thank you, Karen. Exactly. Um, and I saw today an article, comes from Spain, where they probably found one of the earliest evidence of an assassination. The article puts it that there was a first war, but I don't know. But there's also evidence that I have an article that there was actual conflict and intertribal conflict. I might do that soon because I have to pick and choose what articles I I do, because some of them are just boring as hell. This one looked interesting, and it is interesting how diseases could be transmitted, how they are found in our DNA. At least the remnants of them, anyway. So yes, yes, they are. Fields are sitting ducks for scorched earth tactics. It's been used since the Neolithic, the the Neolithic period, at least the Chalcolithic period, anyway. That's the Copper Age, just Chalcolithic Copper Age. So yeah. Okay, I think I'll wrap it up. People, thank you for coming on. I hope I was somewhat interesting. I only do once a week streams like this because the material is thick. There's not a lot of articles that are worthy. Um, so thank you for coming on. Um, Cool, Bobby. Yep, genetics. I wish I knew more about genetics, but then again, I don't need to. I get I can ask geneticists and anthropologists for the data, and then I build up the. I ask, quote them, invite them to the joint publication of the paper, etc., etc. Obviously, so that's how archaeology works. And again, thank you, people, for coming on. And see you next week. As soon as I find the way to get out of this. Here we go. Oops. Bye-bye.